Welcome back, everybody. This is Backlash Radio. Anthony Pino from Hook Optics here, God's Country, Ocean City, Maryland, at Sunset Marina today, actually. And Nick's down at what looks like his boss's house.
Right? Rainy South Florida.
Gotcha. And we have Madelyne and Sasha Motsko, directors of the world famous White Marlin Open, the whole entire reason why I even started fishing in the first place offshore. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. I'm pretty excited about this.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So, if you guys want to give us a little biography on you guys, yourselves, and obviously your father, and then the tournament, and then we'll see where that takes us.
Okay. Sure. So, my dad worked as a maid on the charter boats down at the Talbot Street Pier. It's how he put himself through college. And very quickly realized that he loved fishing. He had a passion for it. And he worked several seasons. I know he was saying one of the seasons that he worked, I think they fished like 90 days straight, something insane. So he worked a lot. Realized it was something that he really loved, put himself through school at the University of Maryland at College Park, graduated with a degree in business. My grandmother told him it was time he got a real job. So he went to work at a bank in downtown Baltimore, and it was the summer and it was hot and he had to wear a suit, and he was like, F this, like, this is not for me. So, he decided to pick up and move to Ocean City, and he started selling real estate with a group that was just selling ocean pines when they just got going. So he did that and had some really quick success there. And then he and my mother were on their honeymoon in Bimini. And he said, wouldn't it be great if you could do something that you love for a living? And I really love fishing, and I think I'm a really good angler. So I want to start a fishing tournament that'll have guaranteed prize money. At the time, there were no guaranteed prize money fishing tournaments. It had just started in golf with guaranteed prizes. So he thought, we'll do a guaranteed prize money fishing tournament, and I'll fish it. And I'm a really good angler and I'll win. And then I'll take that money and go fish other tournaments. And like, this will be our plan. So I always joke that my mom, thank God she was kind of a free spirit, because otherwise she was probably like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? This is our plan. So she was really supportive. And in 1974, they had the first tournament. And Sash, do you want to take it from there with how many boats there were and how it's grown?
I think there were 57 boats at the first tournament. And, fast forward 51 years later, we've had as many as 449, last year being 400 boats. So, yeah, it's really, this is something that Madelyne and I grew up with. We were put to work as soon as we could work. So as little kids, our whole lives have been centered around fishing and promoting the White Marlin Open. Every family vacation, we were down in the Keys promoting the White Marlin Open. We were in the Outer Banks. That's what we did. We hit the road, we promoted our events, and of course, they were always places where my dad could get some fishing in too. But, based out of our hometown of Ocean City, we run this event and it's a year-round kind of thing. And from the time we were little, we were helping to, go around our dining room table and stuff the captain's bags that we would give away, and answer the phones and those types of things. And as we got older, little by little, we started taking on more responsibility. And and then here we are today. So today it is still very much a family-run business. It's my mother has passed, but it's my father, my sister, and myself that are running the day-to-day operations of the White Marlin Open, and now our new event, Marlin Fest.
and we've wrangled our kids into it too. So Josh and I didn't really, there was never this moment where we sat down and my dad's like, do you want to carry on the family business? That never happened. It was more like we saw that it was getting really big, and we were like, we think dad needs some help with this. And, you know, I went to college and got a degree in microbiology, which you can do nothing with unless you want to eat ramen noodles for the rest of your life. And I was like, not really the direction I wanted to go. So it kind of just made sense for both of us at the times that we were finishing college and getting ready to enter the workforce. The timing was perfect for us to step into the tournament. But, you know, our kids now, they've helped since they were old enough. I have one teenage daughter. Sasha has 3 teenagers, and we're so thankful to have 4 extra sets of hands. They work just as hard as we do that week. They get paid, but they're basically like our slaves. So that's great. Yeah, and it's a family event, and we're really proud of the fact that we're the world's largest and richest billfish tournament. Last year, we awarded $10.6 million, but we are still very family focused. And because we're a family run event, you know, we have complete control over it. So we've been in a great position every year. You know, we've been approached with a lot of different things, and our number one priority has always been the integrity of our family first and the integrity of the event second. So that's really important to us. And we don't get involved with things that we feel like don't line up with our values. So it's something that I think we're really proud of from that aspect. Obviously, we're proud of the fact that it's the largest and that it's been around for so long. But I'm personally most proud of the fact that we've never once compromised our values in order to, you know, make it more successful. We've been able to do that in a really organic way, sticking to the things that we think are important.
And we, you know, have our father worked really hard to build this brand, and, you know, we have tried our best to kind of protect that. Mm-hmm. And he is a man of decency, and he's honest and fair, and he's always also, he always has had from day one the participants in mind, well, aside from himself, and he's, you know, starting event for his own passion. The second most important thing would be our participants. So he has always welcomed input from the participants, and there's always, you know, room for us to grow. We don't think that we have all the answers and that we're doing everything, you know, perfect all the time. Is pretty close to it. But we did, and to this day, and so that's what it's always been about, is our participants and how can we make a better experience for them. That's how, you know, Dad always saw it, and that's what we try to continue today. We value the, you know, input and how can we make it better and better experience every year for our participants.
That's incredible. What I guess my next question would be 57 boats to 449 boats or something like that. Let's talk about how over the years, how it grew and how you understood the experience of the early days. Cause I guess I'm so young that I only know a handful of people that have fished every one. I actually work for one, I think. For Charlie on the Sea Hag that's fished. I don't know about everyone, but a lot of them. And I just how that happened, and you know, it's such a strange place for people to think that geographically they're like Ocean City, Maryland. Like, why is the biggest billfish tournament in the world there? And I find it incredible that you guys have been able to do this. And I was gonna
say, I think one of the keys is we know what kind of tournament we are, and our model has always been to pay back out as much as we can. And as the purse grows, more people are going to want to participate. So that's always been our model. You know, we are not a bougie tournament. We don't feed you. We don't give you drinks. We don't do any of that stuff. And because of that, we put, all the money back, or, as much as we can back into the prize money. And I think that's what's always kept people coming back. And I know in the early years, a lot of other tournaments that were trying to get going, there was, a lot of questions of, well, are they really paying the money out that they're supposed to be doing? And maybe they're not honest. And, as far as that goes, that's never been questioned with us. We've always been very above board, very transparent from the very get-go. And I think in the early years, that went a long way with people. I do think that, we have, I have memories of, I was born in 79, but in the 80s, it basically seemed like a free-for-all. They're coming home from after the registration day, and there's just bags of money, and they're handing us a stack of hundreds, and they're like, can you kids help us count this money? So it's definitely it's changed a lot since then. But I do think that the fact that we pay out a lot keeps people coming back, and we are transparent about that.
And I think also that's all very true. I think a lot of it is also the connections that our father has made with the captains and the owners and the participants. And he can tell you to this day, I would say almost every boat that comes up and every person, if he doesn't know your name, he knows your face, and he can tell you, what size boat that is, what the make of the boat is. And people appreciate that. People appreciate that he is still sitting there, in his 70s at the registration tent, and, knows everybody and wants to talk to them. So there's a real sense of community also.
Yeah, it brings a lot of value to the tournament, and the fact that it's family owned. I think it's amazing that you guys have been able to be family owned for so long and not have had outside, I'm sure investors probably try to buy into your guys' tournament, and you guys have stayed true to the family.
For sure. It's something that we, I think I know for myself, since it wasn't really an option for Sasha and I've given it as an option to my daughter, because I don't want her to feel like she has to do it. But I would love if she wanted to continue it, mainly because I don't want to do it forever, but also it would be nice to carry on the family legacy. And that's what's neat about it, is that's what it's turned into. It is a legacy event.
Mm-hmm. And we have, the fun part is that we have, everyone. So year round, it's just a 3-person show. During the event itself, obviously, we have a lot of other staff that helps us. And that staff is made up of more family. We've got cousins that are on the weigh scale. We've got our kids, working at Marlin Fest, my husband. We've got aunts and uncles that are in town that are making food for us. We've got, our cousin that's on the, that's an announcer. We've got, so it really is. And then we've recruited all of our friends, long time friends. We say it's kind of like the mafia. Once we invite you in,
you're not getting out. We've got you for life.
Yeah. So it's really, I love it. It's fun. It's kind of all I've ever known. So, yeah. And it's been great in that it's allowed Madelyne and I, an opportunity to, raise our children. The beauty of it is that we can work from home, and our hours, except, right now we're in crunch time, but for the most part, we can, set our own hours. So it's really a neat thing.
Can you guys, were there certain maybe time periods, strings of years, or certain years that you were like, wow, like that you can remember it growing like kind of suddenly, or was it just kind of gradual the entire time?
When Sunset opened, that was a big, that really put us, knocked us up a big step. What is there, over 200 slips at Sunset?
Yeah.
So that was a huge jump for us that year. I think that was the single, like if you had to look for one specific thing, that definitely was a big factor in us growing, over the 250 boat mark for sure.
Wow. And prior to that, was it outstandingly the biggest tournament in the east, on the East Coast or in the world at that time, or did it need that to do?
Yeah, we've been the largest in the world for quite some time.
Okay. Gotcha.
Mhm.
What was the jump before Sunset Open? Like before Sunset, how many boats to when Sunset Open?
So I think we were pretty steady in like the 200s before Sunset opened. And then that just helped us to get, over 300 and then grow to, like Sasha said, our biggest year was 449. That was right before the huge crash in 2007. So, everybody had a ton of money then. So you
That's
had
my
every
first
single
year.
boat on a trailer, and every real estate agent in town was crushing it. So they all fished, and that was a banner year for us.
And then
Wow,
what was it?
that's-
And if you, the year after, like 09 was pretty difficult, right? Like it was amazing how it was like 250 or 270 boats or something like that, if I can remember correctly.
I try to block that all out. I know that
Thanks,
I
Anthony.
really like to remember the really great years.
Yeah.
We definitely, it took a dip, and then from there it was a real slow, just like everything. It took a long
Yeah.
time for everybody to recover from that, and that included us.
Yeah. Were you guys, I mean, I hate to, I just find it interesting because, there's, you want to hear how people persevere through tough times. Was it, were you guys prepared for that the next year? Because I mean, obviously the big stuff happened in October of 08, so 09 would have been the year. Were you guys like prepared of the contrast?
I mean, the thing is about this event is that so much of it, all of it is out of our control, right? We've got the economy, we've got the weather, we've got, what's happening in the world and the politics of it all. So, I have just come to a place where I don't even try to think about that. I am grateful when people show up on the registration days. There are times like usually, we register boats on the Saturday and Sunday before, and the Saturday is always just called our pre-registration. We don't get a ton, but Sunday is when we really get hammered. A lot of people wait until the last minute. They're watching the weather. And so sometimes there will be a lull during
2:30 in the afternoon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like 2-3 o'clock where, it's just all of a sudden you look and there's not a long line of people waiting anymore. And we're like, oh shit, here we go. And then,
the year that it's going to stop at 2:30 in the afternoon.
Yes. And then what makes it worse is you've got the general public that's up there at Harbor Island. It's curious about, they keep stopping by our table. What number are we up to? What number are we up to? And then, they weigh in on, oh, it's not going to be good this year.
There's so many haters. There are so many haters.
I remember, I don't know if it was a year or two ago, and the weather was bad, and my boss at the time was like, there'll only be 300 boats in it or something. It was way more than that, but there was some factor. I think it was maybe the one where the big hurricane came through and you guys extended it.
Oh,
Yeah.
COVID.
Like,
that was awful.
Yeah, maybe it was COVID. Yeah.
Oh.
And he was like, there'd only be 300 boats in it now, or 250 boats in it. For me as a competitor, knowing that we were definitely going to fish it, I don't mind fishing against 250 boats versus 450 boats, because at the end of the day, the way the tournament's set up, if you're one of the lucky ones, it's still an enormous amount of money that people will receive in some of the crews. It's life-changing money. I want to talk about that a little bit too, but like I still like people it is interesting that people have that concept of like, oh, it's not bigger than it was last year. Well, it's still the biggest tournament in the world, and it's not a devastating loss if it's 400 versus 450. You know, we all want it to be enormous, but it is enormous no matter what. And it is. I don't care what anybody says. Per capita in this town, there's no event that brings more money per person to this town than the White Marlin Open, and I'm thankful that your father was recognized for it. I think it was last fall.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes the fishing community gets lost in the in this in the summer shuffle here in Ocean City, because we do have so many other things. But at the end of the day, the amount of money that's brought by these people and these boats is kind of mind blowing. And the tournament is a great example of that. And I sometimes don't think that the town really sees it.
Well, it's
I would
interesting.
second that. Yeah.
Absolutely. The White Marlin capital of the world. And, you know, there's a lot of attention paid to, you know, the golf tournaments happening and cruisers and Sunfest and Springfest. And I feel like people do forget that we've got, you know, some fantastic fishing here, and they forget about the sport fishing community.
Yeah. And maybe it's because you guys have kind of kept yourself independent of the town, or maybe it's because the town, I don't know. I feel like it's more on the town's end, but you know, it like, and the fact that a lot of the community and the fishing is on this side of the bridge versus that, which is probably for the best. But I mean, the tournament does take place in Harbor Island, and I don't think you should ever change it, because I love going in there where it's tight and it's hard to get a boat in there, and there's people everywhere. It's kind of nerve-wracking. I love it. You know, I've only been to the scales 3 times, and once as a captain. But when I went in there as a captain, it was a real moment for our group.
It
Nice.
is. And it's really cool because, you know, Sasha and I always look at this event from the standpoint of the amount of work that goes into pulling it off. And it's really nice because during that week, during registration, when we see the same faces year in and year out, and when we see new faces, and when people come up to weigh the fish, and you see the emotion that's involved with it. And we have people tell us all the time, like, this is a bucket list thing for me. I've been waiting to do this my whole life, or I look forward to this week all year. And, you know, we've got the 3 C's. We've got competition, we've got cash, and we've got camaraderie. And those things, it's really rewarding for us to hear what it means to so many people. You know, we've heard wonderful stories about, like you said, the life-changing money. You know, one guy came up and he was just like, I just want all this money. I'm going to pay off the IRS, and it's the best feeling ever, you know, and it's neat. It's really become a fixture in the town, and even more so in the sport fishing community.
Oh, for sure.
And we're really just honored to be such a big part for the people let us be such a big part of their lives.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine the feeling of like backing down and, you know, sitting there and, you know, getting your fish weighed, and it's, you know, the first place white marlin or whatever it is, or a big blue, and the thousands of people. Literally,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I feel like really sets us apart. Is sure, a lot of people like to go to fishing tournaments. I mean, we've got diehard fans.
No, like people base their summer vacations around this tournament and being here, and to pull in there, like from my experience, if you'll indulge me, on the blood money, it was 2020, we were on a pretty good hot streak, and I did something dumb, and I ran up way out to the northeast by myself. We ended up catching 5 white marlins, and at the end of the day, we hooked a large tuna, and it was a weighable tuna, and we came in, and I remember we picked up all the girls at White Marlin Marina, all the wives and girlfriends, and mom was freaking out there. That was when Marlin Fest was there at the park and not at the inlet. And my brother and and my father were working at the weigh-in at the weigh-in, and just to go in there and pull in there. And I'd won a little bit of money on wahoos prior as a mate, but to pull in there as a captain, and we had only thing that sucked was I pulled in there and saw the boat we were competing against for top boat in the whole tournament, and we lost on time. But we weighed a second place tuna, and we weren't in the money because that's how the blood money rolled all the time. And but it was still a moment. We had like 20 people on the boat. We got to pull in there. Like I said, we pulled in there with like 20 people on the boat. And it was a real moment for us to be there, hanging the fish, being able to come back into the dock and, like I said, celebrate our second place tuna and our second place overall. Something that I want so bad. That's all I want to do is win the top boat. And it was a real moment for us. Like it was a real accomplishment, and we won the Mid-Atlantic a year before, I think. And yeah, it was a real moment because we had built that team, and it was maybe Peter, one of the owners was from New Jersey, but he was well invested in fishing out of Ocean City. And it was a real moment for all of us to pull in, and everybody really appreciated it. And I'll never forget that.
And we love that too, joining in that excitement, especially when it's people that we know, people, from the city. I mean, that's just the icing on the cake for us.
And it's amazing. Talking about the money a little bit. I mean, it's crazy what the tournaments come to when it comes to the Calcuttas and everything, and being over $100,000 to get across the board. And sometimes I wonder, is that too much? Or sometimes is that what the market, and I think you're only doing it what the market is reflecting you guys can do. Because at the end of the day, you don't have to get in the Calcuttas. You can still participate and see what happens with whatever you're comfortable with. But I will say, like, for some of the people growing up around here, I know some kids, they're not kids anymore. They're in their 30s, professional captains and mates that have won like real life-changing money at a really young age. And I don't know if there's any other event that could really do that I'm sure there is, but for just a local kid, or maybe a kid from Baltimore or the DC area who moved down here and started becoming a mate, and was fortunate enough to win something like that, it sets people up like for life. I remember when the Tighten Up won it, this is years ago, maybe 09, 08, 09, maybe 11, I can't remember, but there's a Tighten Up, a local boat here in Ocean City, Jason Genther, and I think his mate at the time was 14 or 15 years old, Michael Murray. And I think he was really, he got a lot of money, he was really smart, and he's been an amazing deckhand and now captain ever since. And I think it's an incredible story, and that's one of a lot of stories that we can talk about.
That for me is one of the neatest things is that, when my dad started it, the idea was that it was a true open. Anybody could win and anybody could fish. And my dad—
Did it start like that? Because I heard that it was originally going to be a release tournament.
No. So we've weighed fish from the get-go.
Okay.
And so I lost my train of thought. Oh, so what I was going to say is, so a true open, anybody can win, anybody can fish. And my dad always said that fishing is the great equalizer. The fish don't care if you're a man or a woman. The fish don't care what color you are, what religion you are, how much money you have. Anybody can fish and win. And we've seen that in our event. We've had, the Fortune 500 CEOs that are already really set financially that win a ton of money. We've had the cruise where it was a bunch of firemen that all pitched in, and, they won and split up a boatload of money. And the thing for me that I think is the most special is, you hear about the angler and how much money the boat's winning, but when you think about the crew especially, and, a lot of people don't realize that, the crew gets a piece of that too. And when the crew, who really, most of the time, or a big part of the time, you've got to have a good captain and you've got to have a good mate. That's what it comes down to. And I think a lot of times they kind of get looked over because it's the angler that caught the fish. But it's neat to see how those winnings trickle down and can be really life-changing, not just for the angler, but for those crew members as well.
Yeah, I would say especially for those crew members.
Yeah.
Sure. And when you've got just ordinary, everyday people like Tommy Hinkle, who's a school teacher, who's twice, we've had a 14-year-old win. We had a 15-year-old win. I mean, those are the fun stories.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
So a question that me and Anthony talk about quite a bit on the pod, and I feel like we have for years now, but is there going to be a time where there'll be more money going towards a release division because of how, the skill level and of how much goes into actually releasing the most amount of fish in a tournament that holds 400 boats or so?
So I think that, we look at our added entry levels every year when the tournament's over, and we look at what people get into and where people are putting their money. And we look at what we think the market will bear. And, our release division stays pretty steady every year with the amount of participation that we have in it. Adding additional added entry levels for releases is certainly something we would, consider and discuss. And I think that's where like you said, it's one thing to go out and catch the heaviest, obviously there's skill involved, but if you're not running over the biggest one, you're not going to catch it. Right.
Yeah.
But when you have those boats that are consistently catching the most, that's where I think a lot of the true skill comes in. So certainly something we would consider as far as expanding that release division. I think it's neat because every year when you look at, our top boats, for the most part, it's a lot of the same names. The rock stars that are out there that are just crushing it every year. And it's neat to see that because, you're never surprised when you see certain ones at the top. You're like, well, we figured they'd, if there's fish out there, they'll be able to find them and they can catch them. So as far as the release division goes, something we would consider.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you're not going to have majority of the boats fishing a tournament are out there to get the big one. But, like you said, your big name guys, the programs that fish, 300 days a year or whatever it is, it'd be cool to throw a big money towards that skill level of the guys competing,
It's just annoying because we'll have an incredible tournament and I've been fortunate to be in like the top 25 the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm like really jacked up about that. And like I said, we missed out on the top boat once and I could have cried. But because that's really at the end of the day, that's the list for my ego I want to be on. For my checkbook, I obviously want to go and kill a 98 pounder on Monday and just put my feet up and call the tournament. But like to be on the same list as those guys, some of the boats and programs, to have my name in the booklet, and you look at the Ryan Higgins, the Bull Tolsons, the John Bayless, the John Duffys of the world a couple times, and
that's where the prestige that's really the prestige, I think, that comes along.
And I guess what's annoying about it is if you talk to somebody who's not in the if you go to somewhere for dinner and you get to talking to somebody random at a bar or something like that, they'll be like, "Oh, you fished the White Marlin Open? How'd you do?" And they'll be, we were like, "Oh, we were second place overall." And they were like, "Oh, how much money did you win?" And we went 45,000. We basically paid for fuel.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But I mean, but they're like, "Oh, so you didn't win the whole thing?" I'm like, "No, that's like, there's really what would you ladies say? Maybe six to 9 boats that are super ecstatic at the end of the week as far as the money goes, and then
Well, I mean, it depends on the year. 2 years ago,
Yeah.
well, 2 years ago, over 35 boats won something.
yeah.
So, I mean, I do feel like sometimes it gets more spread out than others. Last year, obviously, it didn't shake out that way with Florial just, being
Yeah.
able to collect so much of that money. So, I think we pay out, I think some years there can really be a lot of boats that take home a good chunk. I mean, there was one year where I think over five different boats won over $1 million. So I think part of the thing, and I know it happens for me too, is you get desensitized to the amount of money it is.
Yeah.
And you see last year, well, they won over $6 million. So this year, if somebody doesn't win over $6 million, it's going to be like, oh, they just didn't win that much money.
Yeah.
And you're like, right, but $3 million is still a whole lot of money. So I do think that people get desensitized as to how much it is you can really win.
But you aren't the first person to have mentioned that that concern.
But-
and like I said, we've, from the beginning, we really try to listen to our participants, and it's certainly something that
It's only bruising to my ego. It's not really like I just want to be recognized for being really trying to do well or getting close to doing well in the White Marlin Open. But in the grand scheme of things, the tournament is built on what you and your father built it on, and it's still incredible. Like some people, I hear people say things like, oh, it's a bit top heavy, only certain boats win $1 million or whatever, but those boats do win $1 million, and it's not like it. I don't think it would be the event it is if it was a little bit more, I would say, like spread out like the Mid-Atlantic, but the Mid-Atlantic is their own niche too, so it makes sense. Like, and you can fish both of them if you have the resources and the time in the same month, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, I sometimes wonder about that, but then I'm like, man, it's just such a great event as it is. So I can see how difficult it is to try and grow, but not get too far away from what originally got you there.
That's right.
Yeah. And what you were saying before about now you're looking at it, it's $110,000 or something to go across the board. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, we understand. I mean, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking like, this is nuts. So, but the thing that's good about it is that you don't have to get into everything. And the way that we've structured our added entry levels is, you can put up $10,000 and win well over $1 million. So we kind of pride ourselves in the fact that we offer a little something for everybody. We have 28 footers that enter and they'll get into, A and B, which is like $1,000. And then you've got the ones that come up and write the check for the 110,000. So we've really tried to make it so that there's a little bit of something for everybody. There's a little bit for every budget. And look, in this industry, there's always going to be the guy that can write the check for any amount that you say it is, right? So, we don't want it to seem like it's completely out of touch, but that's why I think we're over 30 added entry levels now. So you can really pick and choose what you want to get into based on what you think your skill level is, what your comfort level is with different species and what your budget is.
I think I can't. It is a free, like it is a true open tournament, and I feel like people that him and Hall about it being 110 grand across the board just need to come to terms with it. Then they're not that guy.
That's part of the problem. That's part of the problem.
They want to be that.
They want to be that guy.
Right. Everybody.
Yeah.
And they need to write that check soon.
Yeah. Yeah. But listen, most people are not that guy. Most people are not. I mean, so, but I think it bruised a few egos, because before, you could go in and say, I can go in across the board, and then all of a sudden, you can't. And
it's just a tough thing to come to terms with when you do get lucky and you feel like, oh, like it's so easy for the rest of the people around, looking from the outside looking in, to look at the boat that didn't get across the board and say, oh, like you should have got across the board. Like they knew they were going to win at the beginning of the tournament.
Right.
So yeah, I been through that situation a couple times, and it's kind of, you just have to come to terms with, as a crew member, it's just not your money. If you want to go do it on your terms, you can, enough people in this industry, you might be able to, if you try hard enough, to maybe be able to put your own money into it, if you wanted to take a different career path. But that's not our decision, a crew member's. It's a team decision a lot of the times, but typically it rests on one person or the other, and you just have to be comfortable with what and open about what you're going to get in and what you're not going to get in, and the possibilities of, like, we never tuna fish on the blood money. And the way the big eye fishing is typically where you fish in a certain spot and you fish all day for that one bite, and people get that one bite. To roll across a tuna in 1,000 fathoms, 100-pound yellowfin, which I've caught 100 pounds or bigger in Ocean City in my life, and to roll across that is a sheer, like, dumb luck, or good or bad luck, however you look at it, but also consider it good luck, because we still had that moment. But
there's always, no matter what, there's always going to be somebody that has something to say about something, right? I mean, and that's why we really try to focus and remember who our customer is, and that's the participants. And, there's always, like I said before, I mean, there's always haters. You could, no matter what we do, there's somebody's got something negative to say about it. So, we just try to do our best and listen to what the participants say. And it's worked well for us for 51 years. So.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have been doing it for so long. Are there still, after every year, are there little things you guys take away from every tournament? Like, hey, maybe we could still make this better, like, I mean, like I said, you've been doing it for so long, but I mean, I'm sure you guys are super dialed in with everything, but every year, are you guys still like, hey, maybe this year we'll make this a little better, or you guys are?
We always come up with it's best. We usually try to brainstorm immediately after the tournament is over. And, and then we're getting feedback from our participants. We're talking to one another and our staff and want their feedback. So, we're always trying to come up with new opportunities, say for sponsorships, new ways just to include people in general.
Yeah, and like, for example, it took us 49 years to finally figure out the best way to run the registration so people didn't have to wait in the blazing sun for 6 hours to register. So we made a couple changes 2 years ago, and we had no lines. I mean, we were breezing through, and finally I was like, wow, it took us this long, and we finally figured out the best way to do it. And then we got the people that come up, well, there's no line, you're not going to have a lot of boats this year. And I was like, well, everybody else was complaining about being in line. So, but yeah, so we're always trying to improve. We're always trying to improve the event for the participants, the event for the spectators. We're trying to improve just our logistics so that, it's a really grueling week for us. It's a really grueling week for the staff, very limited staff that we have. So we try to find ways to improve upon our quality of life during that week. There's always room for improvement. There's always room for growth. If you stop adapting, then you're just going to die. So we continually are trying to adapt.
Nice. That's awesome.
What do you guys have any over the years special moments or special fish that were weighed that kind of stick in your head, kind of maybe you guys create those moments, maybe a reason, because I'm sure it's difficult at times and you wonder why the hell you even do it, and that kind of keep you going?
I've
And
got
like this,
one that's not really, well, COVID. So,
Yeah.
you know, after it was so incredibly difficult during COVID, and we weren't sure if we were going to be able to have a tournament, number one. Number two, we didn't know if we'd have the venue available, even if fishing were able to take place. Number three, we didn't know if people would even show up if we could have it. And there were so many hurdles that we had to jump through. And just when something would be in place, like new guidelines would change. And that was a fantastic year for our event. Once it was all said and done, we had a great turnout. We were able to come up with a new concept of being this Marlin Fest. You know, we took a situation that was awful and thought, okay, how can we make this work for us? Well, here's how we can still have the participants come, or excuse me, the spectators. We can have another venue where everyone can spread out. There's more space, and that's when we had our first Marlin Fest. So that was something that was birthed out of a terrible situation. But for me, that was, I mean, man, I gained a whole lot more gray hair after that one. But that was a moment after we pulled that off. I was so incredibly proud of us. So that's something, even though I try to forget.
There was also a hurricane that year. I would just like to put in the hurricane.
Right.
Also.
I mean, every possible scenario that you can imagine, we had to deal with. And, you know, at the end of the day, we pulled it off. It ended up being a great event. And to me, that's, you know, that was a really good feeling to still be able to offer this experience for people during COVID and give them an opportunity to feel like human again, to feel like they could get out and do something and interact with others, and a sense of normalcy for people. So that was a moment that I remember, just a real sense of pride.
Mm-hmm. I would say for me, a fish that I really remember, and I would just like to preface this with, you know, all these years run together for us. So, you know, everyone's like, who won last year? And I'm like, oh, geez, I don't even know. You know, they all run together. But one that really stood out for me, it was in the 80s. So I was very young, and it was Dr. Jim Daniel. Came up to, I think the boat was Memory Maker. Is that right,
Memory
Sash?
Maker. The captain was Marty Moran. I worked for him for 5 years.
And I'll never forget. I mean, it was a small boat, and it backs up, and you see on one side of the boat a massive bill sticking out, and then he swung around the other way, and you see a massive tail. And at that point, that was the biggest blue marlin I had ever seen, and I was small. And I'll just never forget. I think at that point, it kind of dawned on me, like, the fish, this was, and the crowd went wild. That was a really neat, a neat fish that I specifically remember. And like I said, that was in the 80s, which was a million years ago. But that one really stuck with me.
That's crazy.
That's awesome.
I love
How big was that fish?
It was like 900 and some pounds.
Yeah.
And it was the state record for quite some time before we had 2 granders that we weighed several years apart. But that blue marlin was state record for quite some time.
It's, you know, even though we're the White Marlin Open, to see people love to see blue marlin get weighed. I mean, the look on the spectators' faces of something that they've never seen fish like this come out of the ocean. So there's something different, I feel like, when we've got a great big blue that's brought to the scales. And I always love seeing all the, like, grown men crying when they
I do too.
That is my favorite, to see grown men crying and jumping up and down and
high-fiving and all of it.
High-fiving, and they're like shotgunning beers, and
and
then it can turn like that, you know. And then that's the thing, is that you know, everything could change with the next.
Here comes a bigger one.
Yeah. It's moments of exhilaration,
short-lived
heartbreak. It's all of it. It's like, it has all the elements that, you know, something that's really exciting.
It's a real moment though when you weigh a fish there and it qualifies or it's in the money for something. I think people
Mhm.
and you see people, especially when they win, like and they know if they are lucky enough to back in there later in the evening on like a Friday. I mean, you do that and you kind of know it's over. It's got to be magical. And or Thursday. I always feel like Thursday is the day that everything moves. I don't know
It
if you guys
is.
have any
We
data
call
on
it
that.
moving day.
Yeah.
It always is. There was one other, I just want to bring this up. I'll remember this. There was a guy who had a wahoo to weigh, and he was coming from, I think he was coming from Virginia Beach. And he calls, he's like, I have a wahoo. I've got it in my truck. I think I'm going to make it on time, but I'm going to get like, stuck in the tunnel. And he's like down to the wire, and he pulls up with literally like a minute to spare. And he's got 2 newborn twins in the carriers and a wahoo. And he came up like just with the very, like I said, like a minute to spare. And that was really neat too. So it's such memorable moments for so many people. It's neat to be able to be a part of helping to create those memorable moments.
I thank you guys for that because I don't know if I'd be fishing if it wasn't for this tournament. I think it's incredible. Now I don't know where I'd be without this marina here in Sunset and the tournament. I don't know. Probably doing something a lot more miserable. But it's really amazing. I'll never forget it. Like I graduated high school and my uncle was at my graduation party, my Uncle Bill. And he was like, hey, I'm gonna go fishing tomorrow. I was like, man, I'd love to go fishing. I haven't been fishing in a long time. But I was always into fishing, but not like it wasn't like ingrained in my lifestyle like it is now. And we fished the day before. I want to say it was the day before the registration. Maybe it was the Saturday before. This is in 06. And we fished. I think we caught one white marlin, missed another one. We were way out behind the Baltimore where I like to live now, like out there where I like to live now. And we came back and I remember all the boats coming in from the south, all the traveling boats. And I don't know how, I guess Sunset Marine had been around for a good 10 years by then, I think, or close to it. And I just remember all these boats backing in and walking the dock and seeing how electric this place was and the camaraderie and the atmosphere. And it fucked me up. Like I was like, why am I going? Like I went to college and I finished college. I don't know why, but I should have just like, I don't regret going to college, but man, like I should have just put all the eggs in that basket earlier because it was such a moment for me to catch a white and then come in and see what was going on. I was like, I gotta be a part of this. And I didn't. It was something special, and it was only because of the tournament and this marina that it was like that. Because other days during the week or something like that, it's not a real. It can be a real atmosphere here on the weekends, but that particular year, I thought it was incredible, and I was done after that.
It's really cool to see people that are so passionate about it to do what they love for a living. It reminds me like what my dad, the reason he started this was, wouldn't it be great to do something that you love for a living? And the passion and dedication that the captains and the mates have to this industry, it's wonderful. It's so cool to be able to be a part of just a small part of what they love about their job. And I think it's really neat to see people that have rolled the dice and taken the chance to do what they love for a living, and and to be able to not be miserable when they go to the office every day. And I know it comes with its own set of struggles and challenges. Everything does, but at the end of the day, when you can get off the boat and even a bad day fishing is better than a good day in the office, right? So what a neat thing to be able to do for a living, and how cool it is that so many people are able to pursue their passion and do what they really love. And for us to be a small part of that's incredible.
I think you guys are a bigger part of that. And I just think that the tournament is a reason why a lot of people own boats here. Like some boats turn into world-class traveling operations, and some people are just summer boats, but it's a real reason why people own boats. I know some boats are the only 3 days they fish is that tournament. But no, I think it's
Smart.
it's incredible, and it's cool to see the boats. It seems like they come from further and further every year. It's pretty cool.
It's neat for us too. It's tiring.
I can imagine.
Stressful.
Yeah.
But it's neat for us.
Oh. Yeah, and thank you for having Hook Optics as a sponsor. It's just been incredible for us to be a part of it.
We love your family. We love your mom.
She's one of our favorite people. We just absolutely adore
you guys are
her.
probably very similar in the fact that I don't know, you see a mountain that you have to get over instead of climbing it, you kind of just go through it. So
yeah.
it's been huge for us as a company, and for me as just a person and a professional in this industry. It's the reason why I do this, and I appreciate it so much. This marine, like I said, Sunset Marina, which was a big step for you guys, this marina being here, and the White Marlin Open is, I don't know if I could ever go a year without like fishing in the summer in Ocean City. I'd die like if I couldn't participate in a White Marlin Open. I don't know what I'd do.
It's people like you that make our event happen. You know, we couldn't do it without our participants. So thank you for your support.
So, anything else, Nick?
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can come fish it.
Yeah. Well, I'm slowly
We'll be here.
becoming an Ocean City native. We're building a local boat up there now, so I've been spending more and more time up there.
Nice.
So, there's so many people that have moved from South Florida to Ocean City because of this industry. When I say so many people, maybe 20 that I know, but they end up here for some reason. So
Cool.
You never know.
So I'd believe that when I see it. But thank you, ladies, so much. That was really enjoyable. So
all right, and we'll see you in a couple months.
For sure.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Care.
Bye.